So it's anti-scientific, the idea that the brain can repress things. And why is it only in these types of cases? We may not remember anything. We may choose not to remember anything. I think we all do that a bit. But the idea that there's this secret mechanism hidden in the brain somewhere, well, why? It doesn't accord with history. History, people can remember.
Welcome back. We are on today with my guest, Dr. Kevin Felstead, on the Tool for This Shit podcast. I'm your host, Angie Sorensen. So, we are back in releasing an episode every 2 weeks, so twice a month. I am really excited with the future guests that are coming up. So today is Kevin Felstead on false memories. In 2 weeks' time is with Dr. Louise Hewitt from the Innocence Louise Project, and then we'll have Max Stanley on couples therapy, and then followed by Tanya Schulz on budgeting, and then there's a few more secret guests to be confirmed, but that's the lineup for now. So, as you know, I'm always super appreciative of your support. If you haven't done yet and you enjoy this podcast, please don't forget to share it with your friend. Give it a 5-star rating, a review. You can do this on Spotify. You can do it on Apple Podcasts, Radio FM, Amazon Music, wherever you're listening to it right now. My podcast is always free to listen to. I don't charge it, so do not worry about words that you may see now when the apps, they update and they put in like subscription and things like that. It is free to listen to. So you can follow, subscribe, all of these things, and it won't cost you a thing. I'm not charging you for this at all. So if you have any questions or thoughts that you want to share with me from this episode or any other ones, I want to hear from you. You can message me directly on my website at angie-s.com/contact. Or you can email me at hello@angie-s.com. But it's easiest if you go on the website. Just go angie-s.com. The link is in the show notes. And you have a contact button there. And just submit any questions, thoughts, or any suggestions for future episodes. If there's any topics you want me to cover or circle back to, let me know. So, on to today's episode with Kevin. With Kevin, we talk about all things memory and how they impact our lives and the legal system. It is an unusual topic in the sense that there's a lot of controversy around it, and there's a lot of trends now going around, especially in the US and in the celebrity culture, about recovered memories from repressed memories. And so I want to talk about this with Kevin, understanding a bit more about what they all mean. And so we talk about repressed memories, misremembering, and implanting memories. So just a little note on the content. It does contain some sensitive content. Discretion is advised. As you know, I will not go into graphic details when it comes to quite disturbing things. So it still stays light, but again, light for who, right? So if you are sensitive to certain things, like just be aware there is a bit of sensitive content. So your discretion is advised. So without further ado, please help me give a big, warm welcome to Kevin. Let's begin. Welcome, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, Angie. Nice to speak to you.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to have you on the podcast today, because this is a topic I've been thinking about for a very long time. I've been wanting to do an episode on this, and now the moment is right. And I'm very, very glad that you said yes to come on to this, because I know you're a very, very busy man. So what we're going to talk about today is the nature of memories, how reliable our brain is when it comes to our memories and remembering facts, and how that impacts us from our relationships all the way to the legal system. And before we dive in, I just want to clarify that the angle that we're going on this, although correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, is not about how we see something, but it's how we remember and how we save that into our hard drive. So before we dive in, Kevin, please introduce yourself, where you live and what you do.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name's Kevin Felstead. I'm Director of Communications for the British False Memory Society, the BFMS. Yes, it's a complicated title, but it's too difficult to change. We deal with cases where people are contesting historic allegations, mostly sexual, based on recovery memories, usually in therapy. So to expand on that, I want to be very, very clear on this. So most cases where somebody alleges abuse are probably true. We deal with the absolute minority, but still a significant minority, where somebody has normally entered counselling and said, I've now recovered memories of childhood abuse, having previously had no cognitive recollection of those abuse memories. And they may span back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. So what is claimed is that I've been to a counsellor, I've now remembered that all of these things happened to me, sometimes under hypnosis, regression therapy, or similar techniques. And these are completely different from a very, very separate data set where people have always remembered, not every detail, but remembered being abused. And they've chosen, for many logical reasons, not to report it often, out of embarrassment. It may be difficult if there's a family member involved. And some people want to get on with their lives and not be defined by what happened to them in the past. So you've got two completely different data sets.
Yes. So it's like, so your work is not to say it's not true, it doesn't exist, no one's ever been abused. It's more like about this very particular, very niche context. And that's where memories comes in, what we're going to talk about. And I'm glad that you actually said that.
Yeah, I mean, let's be more explicit. Sexual abuse is common to all cultures, all societies. It's actually prolific in some parts of the world. And that's not a dispute. So when we're saying that a particular case may be, relating to false or recovered memories, what we're definitely not saying is that all abuse allegations are false, because that's simply not the case. And there's statistics on this. I can quote them if you want them.
So I want to move away a little bit from all the sexual abuse, because it's a bit of a trigger for me. So I want to sort of stay away from that and the violence. I want to focus onto the memories. But before we go on to the memories,
Sure.
I want to ask you, just let people understand sort of a little bit, like, what gives you the right to talk about, because we're going to talk about repressed memories, false memories, implanting memories, the legal impact, and so on. So what gives you the right, the knowledge to go in and talk about this?
Well, I have no right, but I do have the knowledge. So basically, where do we start? So let me just go back a bit. I mean, I knew nothing about false memories. I had no interest in it whatsoever. I studied real crime, and that's what I was interested in. But in 2005, my sister, who'd been estranged from the family for many years, died in circumstances which are still unexplained today. There's been 2 inquests into her death. Both of those returned an open verdict. But sort of summarizing, her behavior changed in her early 20s. She distanced herself from the family. And what we didn't know then was that she was having counselling. She'd been to see her doctor complaining of headaches. This is according to her medical and psychiatric records, copies of which I have, several thousand pages legally obtained after many, many battles. And she went with headaches. Nobody could find a source of those headaches. There's speculation on different fronts. One was that she had migraine, and there was a minor sort of history of that in the family. Another one was actually suffering from stress. She was a nurse taking her final examinations. In the records, it says there's no family history of any significance other than what I've just mentioned. And so she was referred on to psychology to see if, in fact, the headaches were to do psychological rather than physical.
Like psychosomatic.
And according to, yes, yeah. And according to a note in her file, where she's having what sounds like hypnotherapy, hypnosis, it says, it's become clear that Carol has been emotionally, sexually, and physically abused from birth. Carol can't remember any of the details, but they will be revealed in due course. Well, there's only two people in that room, and Carol's saying she can't remember any of it. So who's actually saying this? And then from there, again, according to the psychiatric records, Carol went on to have counselling all over the UK. She went to the Centre of Autogenic Studies in London with a lady called Vera Diamond, deceased, 2005, I think. And I would say that sort of treatment, in inverted commas, was a form of psychological torture. According to medical records, Carol was had to be medicated after the sessions, so distressed was she. She's taking significant amounts of psychotropic medication at the time. She went to the Tavistock Clinic in London, which is now making national media for other reasons, where she came under the hands of Dr. Valerie Sinison. I've named all these people in the book, and they've been named in newspaper articles. They've had opportunities to respond. You can see the responses. They're in the public domain. There's been over, at least in English, about 33, maybe more, newspaper reports on this case. There's been international ones. There's been things in foreign languages which I can't even interpret. And there's been lots of media on the case, so you don't need to take my word for it. I've put it all in a book. Nobody sued me. I've invited them to sue me. So Carol had sort of treatment, in inverted commas, which she came to believe that her families were the leader of a satanic cult, responsible for multiple crimes, murders, at least 8. And the central definitive allegation of Carol's life was that my mother, deceased 2010, murdered other baby, sat Carol on top of her corpse and set fire to the house. I'm guessing to hide what she'd done. The correct chronology is that, according to birth and death certificates, is that Carol was born in 1964. There was a accidental fire in 1963. It was reported on the front page of our local newspaper. I have a copy. There was another baby. She was born in 1962, was ill from birth, was a Down syndrome baby, had a defective heart, and died in hospital. She was never released from hospital, aged 4 months. My dad was an engineer, and there were no mobile phones back then. And he got a telephone call, so he'd been trying to get hold of his wife. He was at work, and he left work in his overalls. He'd been told that the Joan Julie, she was called, was deteriorating. He got a bus to the hospital. He walked in a side ward, and she died in front of him. And it was really tragic. And it's never been forgotten. And we knew about that. But Carol wasn't born when these events had taken place. So they're not only false, they're actually impossible, even though she came to believe they were true.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like obviously, like some therapies, because therapy is actually kind of a new era. It's not a new era. It's sort of a new science. It's not that, it hasn't been around for that long. And I guess, like, some of it can be quite barbarian. I mean, I'm a big proponent of therapy, but you have to be very careful who you are opening yourself up to and how they're going to process this and how they're going to be as objective and try not to be, unbiased as much as is humanly possible. And it sounds like a lot of it. It sounds like when I hear your story of your sister, it sounds like a lot of brainwashing
Yes.
it mixed with drugs, which can be very mind alternating. I mean, I've been on antidepressants before, and I was on it for a year and never again. I mean, it was great whilst I was on them, but the after, never again. That's when I realized actually how even there was a very small dose. It has and how you act on it as well. It's quite interesting, but it's but that was a very small dose, a quite safe kind of medication. But there's some stuff out there that's quite frightening, and it can destroy people's lives 100%. You have to be so careful.
You've made some very important distinctions there, Angie. So first of all, most counsellors probably do a very good job. They help people. Some people need somebody to share their problems with and talk. And why not? It helps people. But we deal with the dark side, the minority of people who I liken them to Flat Earth Society. Despite what evidence that the Earth is not flat, people still believe it. And they believe that all of the problems in adulthood are caused by some trauma in childhood. And that this trauma is so horrific that the mind can't process it and blocks it out, and it can only be unpicked, and the memories can only be recovered with the help of the counsellor who believes in these recovery techniques. Now, the problem is when you start messing around with people's minds, particularly when you take them back to birth, past lives, the formative years, age sort of, we're on safe ground up to 2.5, whereby the brain isn't sufficiently formed to have memories. That might be a defense mechanism as well. So childhood amnesia, if anybody's claiming, as one of our kind of accusers did a couple of years ago, he claimed he'd witnessed his own birth. Well, we know that's not possible. He then capped that and claimed to have remembered past lives. And, I know some people believe in that, but there's no scientific evidence to support.
But I mean, it's not necessarily whether it's true or not. It's sort of like not relevant to a legal case today, like what happened in the previous life, because that's not what it's. So actually, I want to, because that's actually a good point to start into the actual topics I want to go over. Repressed memory. So there seems to be there's a lot of controversy around repressed memories, but there seems to also be an evolutionary advantage when it comes to forgetting pain, right? So whether it's physical, like childbirth, or emotional, to at least forget some of it. So wouldn't it make sense that our brain would do that in certain circumstances, to forget partly certain things or completely certain things?
Well, yes, and you're getting into fight or flight, aren't you? So basically, our brain, our experiences shape us. And obviously, it's advantageous if we kind of on guard. So the idea that something can happen to you and then you can't remember it, I mean, frankly, it insults intelligence. Never mind the research. I mean, tell that to somebody who lives in Ukraine now. They might not remember every single detail and every single day, but in general, they know what's been going on, what's happened.
Yeah, they will remember that.
Yeah, so it's anti-scientific, the idea that the brain can repress things. And why is it only in these types of cases? We may not remember anything. We may choose not to remember anything. I think we all do that a bit. But the idea that there's this secret mechanism hidden in the brain somewhere, well, why? It doesn't accord with history. History, people can remember. The oral history, particularly social history.
So I do have a question on this, because there are some people who apparently don't remember any of the childhood or teenage years. I mean, having to say though, it seems to be the only people I know. It seems to be who say that are famous people. So maybe somebody needs to look into this. But I don't
Yeah.
really know what's
Yeah.
happening there. But they do have normal cognitive function and remember things from adulthood. So what is that about? People forget like years of their childhood or teenage years.
Right. At the risk of insulting your listeners here, most of us live boring lives. So why would you remember boring, mundane detail? If your life was happy and normal, like, you'll only remember it probably when something goes wrong. If I said to you now, okay, what did you have for breakfast this morning? I assume you'd be able to answer that.
Mm-hmm.
If I said, what did you have for breakfast 5 years ago?
No way.
You might be able to answer that. I'd be surprised. If I said, what did you have for breakfast 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, why would you remember it?
But I think
Why on earth?
there's a difference between, because from what I understand when they talk about it, is that there seems to be a complete blank slate. So yes, I don't remember January 2001 or July 1995. Like I
Okay.
just cannot, right? So, but they seem to
Yeah.
have. I know that I have been I remember things from different years in my life, but some people have a whole, what they
Yeah.
say is like years and years and years of, it's like it's gone down the drain. It's like a black hole
Well, I
somehow.
would say that's not normal memory function. And the older you get, the less likely you are to remember things. You might remember when your birthday was. You might remember when you moved house. You might remember when you left school, finished at university, got a job. But in between all that, it's all mundane, isn't it? Why would you recall every detail of it? And the brain probably can't cope with all that information as well.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I think it would. I mean, I've read, I can't remember where, but that today we get more information in one day than somebody in medieval society would get in their entire lives. So we're bombarded with information,
Yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how can you remember it? I would say it's normal, basically, to not remember things.
We are in the age of information. We do, like, it's impossible to retain, and
I mean,
it gets very draining on the brain
let,
as
let,
well.
let's say you play golf, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and you could apply this to any sport. How can you remember every shot you've ever hit? You might remember things that have won you tournaments and putts you got and special sort of shots, but you won't remember most of the. How will you remember when you go to a driving range and hit 500 balls? You do that for a decade. How can you remember each shot? It's not possible.
Would you say, when it comes to remembering things in the past, does
Yeah,
does an emotional charge have any impact? Because some people always forget, they never remember where they've left their keys. I mean, it's like every single day they just, it is so aggravating to
yeah,
be with someone like that. It's like, for fuck's sake, but you just leave the key at the same
yeah.
place. They can't remember the keys. However, they remember what you told them in 1997 on the 5th of May at 10 a.m. It's like, what is that about? Like, is it the emotional charge? What is it?
Angie, this is the only point I need to do a no comment interview. I am married. I do understand the key situation, but if I go any further, it could be detrimental. But I understand that completely.
But what is that about?
So,
If it wasn't the
yeah.
key, how does that, like, what does that mean
Well,
in the brain?
okay. Well, the key thing's interesting, isn't it? Because, and I've done it myself, of course I have, but when so our keys live in a particular drawer, and you go to that drawer, and when the keys are not there, you're looking in the drawer as if the keys must be there. And in your mind, you convince yourself that they are there, but they're not there. It's just because somebody's not put them in the drawer, they left them in a coat pocket. But that feels very real. And we reconstruct things, don't we? So we know what we'd normally do in this situation. We'd normally put the keys in the car. The fact you've been rushing into the house, maybe your mobile's rung, you take your coat off and you've left the keys in the pocket, but you still think they're in the drawer. And they're not. And that is, as you've just said, it is a false memory. But it feels very real. That's a problem with these memories. When you misremember, we reconstruct things. So if I said, if we go back to breakfast debate, so you can remember what you had this morning. If I said to you, well, what did you have 3 years ago, there must be a temptation for you to say, well, I would normally eat A, B, and C, and probably that's what I had, and probably that's what you did eat, but you may not have done. You may be away from your normal routine.
But why? Where is the selection process? Because I mean, I'm not talking about. So it sounds like you. I mean, for example, I always know I leave the key. They're always where I've left them. It's very rare that I can't
Yep.
find them. I'm talking about people who just continuously have no clue. Like it's just like they keep looking in the bag everywhere. It's just constant. They just don't
Yeah.
know, and they tend to be quite messy people. So it's just like
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
opinion. But they will remember something because
Yeah.
I feel like they remember something in the past because they have an emotional charge around it, and it sort of serves them to remember it and remind you about it. Oh, am I wrong
Yeah.
here?
Well, that's absolutely correct. There's the old cliche, isn't it? Where were you when JFK was assassinated?
Right,
And
right.
people can remember that, but when people have looked at these events, some of the memories that people believe are not correct. You can watch something on the news and then misremember it, and that can become your memory. Doesn't make it correct.
Mm,
Memory doesn't work like a video recorder or a filing cabinet. It's on a computer hard drive. It doesn't work like that. It's selective. We remember some things. We mostly forget things. I mean, Julia Shaw, a memory researcher, basically says, I'm paraphrasing it perhaps clumsily here, that our memories are hopeless. And I
hmm.
would agree with that.
So but then how do we go about around the world? Because I feel, I mean, this was something I was going to ask a bit later on, but I feel like what you just said makes it like it's a very relevant spot to talk about is like how do we trust our memories? Like, because I mean, I feel, there are sometimes certain memories that feel really crystal clear. You like,
Yeah,
I remember it. You feel like you remember it the same way. It's very clear. Usually there's an emotional charge around it or an importance to you, right? Around it.
yeah.
And, but if everything is just made up, or if our memories are just not reliable, what are we basing? I mean, is this why maybe we just should, when people say live in the present moment and let the past die in the past, is that maybe a bit more of a scientific reason to why people have that kind of philosophy? Because if you can't rely on your memory, if everything is shit, how do we base anything on, like, how do you live knowing all of this, Kevin? Because I mean, I would go around, it would make me crazy just thinking about it, that nothing
I,
that you
I,
remember is reliable.
yeah, well, I live day to day. Okay, I plan things, obviously. I do so happen to be a martial artist. I practice Shotokan karate for this is my 46th year. Which gives my age away, I guess. But in within that sort of context, we say through every technique, because it's your last one, because one day it will be for everybody, and nobody's immortal. But you can, we tend to remember happy times, sad times, and the latter are really difficult to deal with, aren't they, for all of us? Bereavement, loss, longing, relationship breakdowns, poor health, you will remember that. But mundane things, why would we remember them? Because they're mundane, they're normal, they're just routine things. Getting on a bus to work, getting on the tube in London, catching a train. You may remember it. I can remember several journeys, but that's largely because they've all gone wrong. But the other train journeys, I can look in my diaries and I can work out perhaps what I was doing at certain points over the last, when did they come into post? 2014, um, the British False Memory Society, and I can work out things from that. But I don't remember the actual journeys. Why would I?
So I got, but this is making me wonder a little bit because some people, because you have people who have there's this saying, right? Some people have a good memories, or they have a bad memory. Some people have a good long-term, short-term memory. But then you have a whole other, I'm going to call species or league of their own, is people with a photographic memory. Is that a real thing?
Yes, okay.
You know, some people get this.
Yeah, some people have better memories. I mean, something a barrister said to me recently was memory mistrust, and I understand that. So don't trust your memory, but I don't know how that would work in a courtroom. But if the people who have super memories, what we do know about them, there's been a couple of scientific papers written about them, is they do have better memories than we have, full stop. However, they also revise, they cram, they practice, they read things, they reread things. The idea that they have these super brains where they don't have to do any work, yes, they are blessed with better memories than most of us, but they also practice. I mean, it's the old joke, isn't it, about cramming for exams. I was always told that you can't cram. I could cram. I could cram. I have a short-term memory. I used to memorize essays before my first year exams at uni, but ask me a week later,
and you forget. I know. You do know everything that for that week, and then afterwards you just forget it because it's too much to hold on to. But it's so you mentioned about super good memories and super memories, but what are people who have a photographic memory, who will look at the yellow pages? This is obviously reflecting my age, but let's say they look at a Wikipedia page, and they remember everything.
Good recovery. Well, they claim to, don't they? They claim to, but I'm not sure about that. I imagine I would like to get 10 of these people in a room and say, here's the yellow pages. For those who are young enough to not know about the yellow pages in the United Kingdom is like a phone directory. I don't know if it exists anymore, but there's so much information in there. But I would like to get 10 of these people in the room, show them the yellow pages, and speak to them in 3 days and say, okay, tell me what you remember, and open the yellow pages. And I don't believe they would remember. They claim to, but I don't think memory is that good.
Interesting.
And photographic memory, some people do. But look at eyewitness testimony. Look at the Innocence Project in America. How many people have been wrongly identified? I have to, embarrassingly, tell you about one. So basically, I was a witness to an assault in the 1980s. And I was called as a prosecution witness to attend trial because I'd witnessed what would happen. I hadn't been drinking. It was early evening. And in the end, I wasn't called to give evidence because the person who was accused pleaded guilty just before the trial was due to start. But we were sat in a waiting room outside on a public area, and the person who I'd seen perpetrate this crime was sat there with another person. But to my utter astonishment, when he pleaded guilty and he went in and he was in the dock, I'd actually remembered his friend. I'd described his friend perfectly, but it was the wrong person. And I thank God I wasn't called to be cross-examined on that. I completely misremembered the person, but I was so convinced that my memory is accurate. I would have bet on it. I would have bet my house on it, but it wasn't. Yeah. I picked the wrong person. They'd even got the wrong ethnicity. How bad is that?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, it's it's almost like our brain, as much as it's an incredible machine, and I think our body is an incredible piece of art. When you look at all the things that your body does on a constant basis without you thinking about it, it blows my mind. But it's almost like the brain, it obviously does what it needs to do, and probably the memory part maybe is a part of the survival. It must have an evolutionary advantage to not have to remember everything, because it's probably like, listen, I've got other things to do. I need to keep you alive over here, so I can't be doing everything all the time. So I want to ask you though, because there's a couple of things. I know we talked about repressed memories and how to not take our memories as seriously as we like to take them. I want to ask you about a couple of other things to understand the difference between them. So now we went into repressed memories. what is misremembering and implanting memories? Like, I want to go over those. So let's start with misremembering. Is misremembering the same as forgetting?
Well, not really.
So what is it?
You just remember an event or a course of events incorrectly. So I'll give you an example, which is a bit embarrassing again. It's like Kevin's confession day, this, isn't it? So I wrote an academic paper with a professor last year, and we used an example. It's about expert witness testimony. So confident was I about this particular case that I didn't even bother to pull the file out. I just emailed it over to him, and I'd completely misremembered the course of events. And the reason I always pull the file out, the reason that I didn't was because I thought I knew it inside out, but I'd absolutely misremembered a key event in that whole scenario. And it was a serious situation where somebody had died, and in circumstances which were questionable. And I'd misremembered it. So that's misremembering. The next one, forgetting. Well, forgetting, I would argue, is a normal process of memory. Like you said, you've got all these things going on. How can you remember every single detail? I mean, the mind would sort of melt down, wouldn't it? So that's different. Forgetting is normal. I mean, just jumping back a bit, we're saying about people, we all like to think we've got great memories, but we haven't. That's sadly the bottom line of it. Some people must have better memories than other people, but if you wanted to really remember things, you'd keep rereading, wouldn't you? You'd keep writing them down, you keep rehearsing.
Yeah, and it's like when you read a book. I mean, I like to read books. The ones that I love, I read them over and over and over again, 6-7 times. Like, I'm not even making this up. It's like, or unless I'm misremembering. But I love reading them. I love
you can get help, Angie.
I can get help.
There's help out there for you.
Is that a magic pill? Yeah. When I read them again, I'm like, I do not remember that bit whatsoever. Like, there's things it's like brandly new. And I feel like I know these books so well because I'm passionate about it. So I have an emotional charge because I love the books. But I read them and I'm like, I don't remember that bit whatsoever. And it's quite key to the story. It's like it's the first time I read
interesting.
It. Yeah.
I'm an avid reader and always have been. But when you read a book for the second time, depending when you read it for the first time as well, it can be completely different. There's some books I used to read that I can't get beyond the second page anymore. I used to love some of Hemingway's short stories.
Yeah.
I force-fed myself to read them, but I can't. I just don't like them anymore. I accept his writing qualities, but I just cannot read that.
But also, like, your taste evolves, right? It's the same with food and drinks. Our taste evolves, so that's totally understandable, I feel. But but there's also this bit where we may feel that we're reading, but then we have to go back because we're like, our brain, when it was distracted and went a completely different way. So I mean, the brain is like fascinating. I mean, just as a parent, like a parenthesis, like really quickly, is that I think like within the medical field, like you obviously have the surgeons and there's like a hierarchy between them, right? So like who is like the god and who is like doing the little work in their own way. But heart surgeon, you think it's like that's got a lot of cachet, right? But the brain surgeon, that's the proper, like, that's the one that's like the god within the industry, I think. It's from what I understand, I heard and observed. And I think it kind of makes sense because the brain is so tricky. It's like that we still don't understand the brain even on its physiological level. Like, there are mistakes are being made in brain surgery because there's so many things we don't understand. And it is a really complex organ just on a physiological level. But then there's that more intangible part of it, right? Which is memory, like all the emotions and how it processes that. Those are things that you cannot really quantify in the same way. Like it's a very complex place. And so,
well, that's it. That's interesting because you've nailed something there. I don't know if you meant to do it or not, but basically It would be very interesting, wouldn't it, to speak to a brain surgeon and talk about repressed memories. And I can bet confidently they would say, well, there's no mechanism in the brain which stores these memories and hides them. They're pragmatic people. I have read a book, Henry Marsh, who was a brain surgeon. And the bit I remember about that book is that most brain surgery, they're going at the back of the head with the drill, and they don't always know what they're going to find. But there's no mechanism in the brain, if you come from that discipline, which can explain anybody repressing memories. It simply doesn't exist.
I mean, yeah, I think definitely you have to be so careful when. I mean, that's why I don't go to. I mean, I've been into all kinds of stuff, Kevin. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I love all the woo-woo stuff, and I love science. I love both sides, and I think both sides have kind of saved me and helped me stay grounded, where I could have gone down a rabbit hole, I believe. But I think that I've never been to. I love therapy, to a certain extent, but I definitely am not someone who's been interested in being. I've been hypnotized a couple of times, but it was a very
Oh, Angie.
specific context. No, but it wasn't like, yeah. Well, but then there was, I don't know, disappointment in your voice, Kevin. But I've never been into things like go into like repressed memory and past lives. I'm like, listen, I've got one life, like right now. It's plenty. Thank you very
Well,
much. And I don't
what,
trust, like, who are you to
what,
go in and tell me what happened in my past or in my
yeah.
past lives? If I can't remember it, let's leave it
Well,
there. Thank you
well,
very much.
what,
If it's true, if it's
one of the
repressed,
things on
I don't want it out into the lights.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
One point about that is that some people are more suggestible. So when you mention
yeah.
hypnosis, if you
Mm-hmm.
look at, I mean, I did, what was it called? BBC World Service, I think from memory, it's 2018. And so I had to go down to BBC Studios in London. I was be talking about recover memories. So nothing problematic for me, but the people in before me frightened me. They terrified me. We had a dentist, and he was a dentist who hypnotizes his patients.
Mm.
Only the ones who are hypnotizable wouldn't work on me because I'm not relaxed in that sort of context. And I've had too many bad experiences with a dentist. One of them nearly killed me about 6 years ago. But basically, where procedure went wrong, he hypnotizes his patient and then he performs full dental surgery. That can be fillings, extractions, anything. And then he gives his patient a kind of, we play classical music and you hypnotize and take him to a nice place and all that. And then he gives him a sort of pain threshold of where they will stop and use anesthetic. But what shocked me about that was that the pain threshold was set around 3 or 4. Literally, I'd want 0, So that's a dentist, and his treatment works. It definitely works. He hypnotizes people and performs dental surgery without an anesthetic. Now, if you're like me and you're very, very wary of those situations, I'd rather put it with the pain than go through
Yeah, no,
that.
I'm the
But
same. Yeah,
it's
I don't like.
terrifying.
Yeah, I don't like to not be in control. So I mean, so that's
Yeah,
what I. Given the thing I did, like the hypnosis wasn't like, it's not like you're completely unconscious. It's very much. It was more like to get to a relaxed place, and there was no,
yes,
it was not
yes,
like implanting memories and stuff like that. No, I mean, who knows, right? But um, it didn't. But I'm someone who, I don't like to be out of control. I mean, either put me completely out, so remember nothing, like full anesthetics, or local
yep,
anesthetic, but don't try and
yep,
hypnotize me. But I understand that. I understand why it would work, because pain is also, and the threshold is very much up in your brain too, right? It controls it. So I can see why, if you can somehow
yes,
turn it off, right, it would work.
yeah,
But what if all of a sudden it's switched off and you're in full surgery, like you're drilling in someone's gum? I'm like,
yep,
no, thank you very much. I want to talk about this other part, this other type of memory, which is quite scary, is implanting memories, right? So that's also
yeah.
a terminology, right? So implanting memories, and I sort of put it as like in my notes, implanting memories, hashtag fake news. No, not hashtag, / fake news, right? Can you explain a little bit, obviously outside of hypnosis, because obviously that would
Yeah,
sort of be like that's obviously a very fertile ground to implant memories, right? If you hypnose someone,
Yeah.
like you was talking about your sister, right? So can you just explain, because there may be another context we would see that happen, right? I'm thinking about the legal system or maybe some other ones, but what does implanting memories mean? What is there a definition for it?
Well, two aspects. So you've got scientists, psychologists, many of them professors, who deliberately try to implant memories into their students to understand how memory works. So there's some famous studies, aren't there? People shown photographs. Kim Wade, professor at Warwick University in the UK, of being in a hot air balloon in their formative years. And what they've done is doctored photographs and convinced them and spoken to family members and other people who reinforced this. And they came to believe in being in a hot air balloon. And there's pictures of them in the sky.
And
Of course, the members.
is the family in on it? Like they know they implanted
Yeah. So sometimes they speak to other people and describe events to them and say, well, you went to such a primary school, so you went to Maycroft Junior School from the ages 4 to 7. Well, they know they went to Maycroft Junior School. Do you remember your first day? Not really. Do you remember the second year when you're all taken out on a trip and you went up in a hot air balloon? So and then they're told to go away and think about that and to write your dreams down, and then it becomes to feel real, and people think, well, yeah, I was there, I was in a hot air balloon. So you've got photographic, visual evidence supporting this theory. There are many examples of that. Lost in the Mall is a main one. Elizabeth Loftus in America that got it all going, where people were convinced that they'd been lost in a shopping mall. And those memories were implanted. Julia Shaw did a study where she persuaded quite a high percentage of her students that they committed a violent act in childhood. Again, she reinforced it with real information and context, and they're told to go away and think about it. And a high percentage of participants in that study came to believe that they actually had committed a violent act, even though they hadn't. And then you've got the second aspect of implanting would normally be through counselling, psychotherapy, hypnotherapy, regression therapy, where you go in there and you're taken back to your childhood and you come to believe, as in the case of my sister, in memories and events that actually are impossible because you weren't even born. That's an extreme example by any comparison. But literally, once these things are there, the mind is sort of tenuous. You can go away and you start remembering things. You ask, how do you think you would feel? What did it taste like? What did it smell like? And you conjure up all these things. And these memories can become very, very real, very vivid, except they're not memories. They're not true. They're not real, but they feel that. And then you can initially start out whereby you have a counselling session. You don't need counselling. You can just go online and check these things. And there's a lot of online counselling going on as well at the moment. And you can, if somebody believes that all of your adult problems are caused through something that happened in your childhood, you can easily be persuaded. And bearing in mind, when you go to counselling, you're vulnerable. You're going because there's a perceived problem. Like a common one for BFMS is postnatal depression, where people are vulnerable, and you're trusting yourself into the hands of what you think is a skilled professional. And if they say to you, well, do you think this could have happened? Once that trigger is implanted, it's a very small step to go on to the next level. And then you can get fully blown false memories.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, because it doesn't even need to be a professional, but if sometimes like layman people would say, that's layman people, like just everyday people, right? I'm including myself, right? I'm including me in this, but it's like, I remember even growing up, the general thought around, and this has obviously had a huge impact on people, a very negative impact, because it's an erroneous belief. But the general belief was that people with like eating disorder had sexual abuse as children. And that was a very common belief where I grew up. A very common belief.
Yeah.
And that is incredibly dangerous. By the time, it felt like, oh yeah, that's just like that seems too track. You don't feel comfortable in your body. You could make it make sense, but it did not mean that was the case for every single person who had an eating disorder.
It comes. There's a book, The Courage to Heal, which has been through many editions now, and that gives a checklist of symptoms. And one of its central arguments is, even if you don't remember being abused, it doesn't mean you were not abused. Now, what sort of an argument is that? And it has a checklist, and eating disorders are one of them. I've always said, if you had 100 people in a room, we'd never want to do this exercise, but you couldn't tell somebody had been abused or not been abused. And most people who've been abused don't reveal it ever to anybody, and don't wish to reveal it. And I do, yeah, I do know people. I just talk to people, and I never forget one lady came up to me at a certain age, an event I was speaking at, and I said to her, well, if you've been generally abused, most victims have a metaphorical drawer where they put that in and they open it occasionally, but they choose to keep it closed because they want to get on with their lives. They may have children themselves, they may be grandparents, they may have a job, and so on and so on. I said, but real victims, that's how they approach, but they don't need a skilled counsellor, or particularly an unskilled counsellor, to help them unpick their memories. They've always remembered, but they've chosen not to think about it every day. And now and again they creep in and they have their own survival mechanisms on a day-to-day basis for dealing with that. And the eating disorder, the idea that if you had an eating disorder, you've been abused, well, there's no scientific evidence whatsoever to support that. Zero. But it's widely believed.
Yeah, and I think it's sort of almost a bit of an arrogant thing to assume, right? In a way that, well, that must be the only reason, and that's the power of sex and whatnot, and the whole thing, that the Freudian legacy, whether he intended that or not, and how that seems to be the one that people sort of remember the most when it comes to psychology.
One of Freud's latest biographers is Frederick Crews. He wrote a book called The Memory Wars, which in 1995, from memory. And Frederick Crews has described Freud as a liar, a bully, and a drug addict. And I don't disagree with any of that. I think that was published about 2018. But he would say, when you have a client in the treating room, the consulting room, don't let them leave until they accept what you're saying to them. So you're not on an equal footing. It's bullying.
Yeah, it's very abusive. Yeah, I mean, it's but you made like a point, and I can't actually remember now whether it's something that you said here now or from something I read or heard you say, like in some of the videos that I've watched you on when I researched you a little bit before this, is that we're talking about those memories and the repressed memories. When you go through something traumatic, like let's say to sort of remove the thing around the sexual abuse. So let's say you had a plane crash, right? I mean, you won't tend to forget that. I mean, I feel like it's true. Like when you mentioned something about how, when you have gone through something traumatic, and there's many different things that can be traumatic, right? You sort of tend to want to forget it. If anything, you sort of almost, you just like, how can you almost wash yourself away from it? It's very difficult to remove something that's had that kind of impact on you. And so, but I always thought that maybe some people, that's just how they're wired. They're wired to forget it, repress it. Like, you have things that there's a term now that goes around in France and Belgium called traumatic amnesia, because there's this famous comedian who's known to have been in and out of drug use, and there was a car accident he was involved in and 3 victims, and he does not remember it. He says he doesn't know what happened. Now, there's obviously some therapists that are saying, it could be traumatic amnesia, which I can kind of understand, but how long that lasts, I don't know. So yeah, I just don't know. I thought maybe some people's brain function differently.
But if you have a traumatic brain injury, then you're not likely to remember it. I mean,
That's
On
different, right?
March
That's like that, but
16th,
that's not what they're saying.
yeah,
They're not saying it's got a brain
it's
injury.
completely different. On March the 16th, 1986, I was involved in a road traffic accident as a pedestrian. I've only just remembered this or thought about it as we were speaking. And I was in hospital for several months with all sorts of injuries. Now, I don't remember the actual impact of that. I remember lying in the road and speaking to my brother. I can't remember everything day to day, but there's certain things I do remember: catching scabies, working with a physio and refracturing the fracture, and getting a chest infection, being readmitted to hospital with gangrene. So I cannot remember the whole of that period, but remember the main things. And I think what you're leading to is the point that trauma is more likely to be remembered than forgotten. So you're more likely to remember trauma than forget it. I don't even think that's controversial anymore. But people who believe, and the belief is paramount here, who want to interpret, so you give them the example of that comedian, well, that's where they will always go. That's their go-to. It's, he's repressed it. He can't remember. It's too traumatic. It's so convenient, but it's not supported by any scientific literature whatsoever.
Is there, because I just thought of something now here again, like just like you just now, just hearing you talking, when they talk about blind rages, and now this is going into the probably more like the criminal stuff, but like, so, some people, they go into such a blind rage and then they commit a heinous acts, sometimes killing someone, right? Is there something where, and you sometimes see it's more like in the movies, like, oh, well, they don't know, they don't remember what happened, or there's like an out of body experience or whatever. Is that a thing, or is that just an excuse? Like, do we know this? Like, can the brain completely switch off and let the emotion take over, like the cognitive brain, and let the emotion take over and do something horrendous?
Well, it used to be called temporary insanity, didn't it? But basically, people have breakdowns. There's defences to that in law, but people come to. I mean, there's a recent case in the UK. I know the solicitor involved in this case as well, whereby somebody murdered his parents.
Oh my God.
He's in prison correctly. It's all over the press. It's not. Well, it's controversial, but what I'm saying is not controversial. But he murdered his parents. Now, there's a defence to that in law, but that person clearly, to murder your parents, I would suggest, unless you're a psychopath, something's gone wrong with your mind, hasn't it? You've had a breakdown.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that will be the defence in this case, because there's no argument about what's happened. He's not saying I haven't done it. He's saying I have done it, and the two deceased people. But that person has obviously gone through some mental collapse to be able to do that.
I guess in this case, to plead insanity, that's just I guess that's his lawyer's job, I guess, but it doesn't mean necessarily, I mean, I guess it's an insane act, but does it mean the person didn't know what they were doing, right? That's a whole other discussion, I know, but it's like, I guess it's the only route you would go. It's the only route you would go. It's like, what else are you going to say if everything's pointing to you doing it, and then you admit to it? Like, in terms of sort of like implanting.
I mean, you've got an example. We mentioned Julia Shaw, didn't we, early on, whereby I did an interview with Julia for something called Wired magazine a few years ago, and when I went into her office, she had a letter on her desk which became part of this interview. And basically, she'd written the book, The Memory Illusion, and a guy who'd murdered his father in Northampton and pleaded guilty to that murder at trial because he believed his father had abused him in childhood. And he read Julia Shaw's book and realised that his memories didn't stack up. And he wrote to Julia Shaw, and that was what the letter was on her desk.
Wow.
Saying, oh my God, what have I done? I now don't believe my dad did abuse me. But so he reacted in cold blood, for want of a better term, murdered his father for perceived abuse, and then came to believe, after reading Julia's book, that actually these events didn't take place.
I mean,
it's an extreme example, but it does show you how the mind can malfunction.
I mean, it seems like we're almost these, in some scenarios, we're like these computer chips that have been bugged or hacked, right? It really feels like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's like the program's gone wrong, and it really is that. It's when I hear it, that's how
Yeah.
I feel it, and
The term, the legal term is diminished responsibility in the UK. So you've had a sort of temporary breakdown because of that. That reduces your intent. Intent is called mens rea in law. So it induces your intent, but and it's a defence, but it's only a partial defence. It's not a full defence because it's accepted that this crime did take place.
But I guess it's sort of obviously important to make a difference between a serial killer, like who doesn't, there's no personal
Yep.
revenge because may not even know the person. Serial killer to someone who is like a crime of passion, if you'd like, like I mean, even that man who killed his dad, it's a crime of passion because it's passion doesn't have to be sexual, right? It just could be. If he felt really passionate about the abuse and he felt really wronged and it gave him such hate, hate is so I guess like with the implanting memories, if you don't mind, if I can just take a little bit more of your time on this.
Sure.
There is obviously two scenarios that are quite worrisome when it comes to implanting memories, right? Which there is talks about how it can be done consciously or unconsciously in the police cross interrogation, right? I mean, there are many cases like that where people go, oh wait, maybe did I do it? Did I? Like, and there's obviously context is how that interrogation is being done and conducted and how long it takes place, and the physical state of somebody in that time. There's a lot of things that go in, and there's the other part that is very worrisome to me, and that's kind of can already be taking place now, and it's certainly something to consider in the future, is the mixture of deep fake videos. Are you aware of that term, deep fake videos?
I'm not aware of that specific term, but I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's like when you're saying that when Julia Shaw was doing the Photoshop on the kid that he'd been gone to, you can do that with video, and you can also make someone,
Sure.
People are doing that with Joe Rogan now. They are making fake videos of him talking, and it's not him. It's just because there's enough recording of him. So you could do a mixture of that, and then brainwash the person, saying, "Yeah, look, you did that, you were there, you did this." So between those two quite horrific situations, right? How do we protect ourselves from this? Like, how do we? Because at some point you have to be able. At some point, we need to develop this skill of knowing for ourselves what on earth happens and when we're being fooled, right? And I'm thinking about, there's a very, very simple, not advanced at all. So obviously things like police interrogation and deep fake videos is a whole other league of their own, right? It's a whole other situation. But for example, when someone gaslights you or is lying to you, sometimes you have that like brain fog and you go, what's happened? Like what? Like there's this thing that people don't listen to, right? But if you learn to listen to it, you sort of usually know when someone's pulling the wool over your eyes when they're not very sophisticated, right? If they're very sophisticated, it's a different ballgame. But at a very basic level, at some point you have to really count on what's inside of you and trust your instinct, really, that goes beyond the brain, right? Something in you has to take over or has to be solid. But is this a skill we can develop and further enhance when it comes to things like being cross-interrogated in a police station where they say you've committed a crime, you've committed a crime, you've committed a crime, or like a deep fake video where you were never there, you never did or say any of those things, but they're showing you this and they trying to convince you. So how do we protect ourselves?
Well, you need to be empirical, wouldn't you? You need to be careful what you read. Social media is a whole kind of new world, isn't it? A brave new world, lots of it for all the wrong reasons, and everybody's vulnerable. So you've got to get your learning from, as Shakespeare would have said, a wide variety of sources. Don't trust one thing. With the videos, I mean, I'm guessing they can be analysed by people who've got the computer skills. You could also check your diary, couldn't you? You could construct a timeline say, hang on, this was meant to be February 18th. Oh, I was in, I don't know, wherever I was on February the 18th. So you might be able to do some of that, and don't just look at one sort of thing. Try and read around the topic and be empirical, scientific. But the difference in a police interview is that the police in the UK, generally now, complainants are called victims, and the National College of Policing introduced a policy in 2012, which are trying to distance themselves from, but it's not made it into practice, where every person who makes a complaint in a sexual case is described as a victim. Well, if you've got a victim, you don't really need an investigation, do you? Because you've already made your mind up that person's a victim. And a lot of these police interviews are so substandard, they're unbelievable. And we're looking at a genre of crime that is treated differently to anything else in the criminal justice system, in the whole justice system.
If they're trying to pin the crime onto someone who hasn't done it, that person is a victim too. He is the victim, actually, right?
Well,
so I guess is that what you're saying? How a complainant turned now the terminology is being victim has got an impact on how thorough the investigation is, because all of a sudden anyone who's in the lineup to be recognized as the perpetrator is a perpetrator. It's not even like a plausible innocence. He's just so that angle is sort of it impacts how the investigation is being led. Is that what you what you're saying?
Yeah. So if you believe the person who's making the complaint, surely shouldn't believe either the accuser or the accused. Shouldn't come into it. What you should do is investigate the complaint, investigate what the accuser said, look at the evidence. Probably you'll be able to decide in most cases. There'll be some way you're not sure. That would be for a jury to try and decipher somehow, and a judge. But basically, people are being asked in these interviews to remember events that took place decades ago. Well, if we're saying we can't even remember what we did yesterday, how are we going to, how are you meant to remember that? And so you can, and this has happened recently in a court case I've been involved in, where the accuser's exonerated, but we're looking at events that were meant to have taken place in the 1990s with what I would call classic recovered memory techniques. So in this particular case, they were acquitted, but they've been accused. Their family's fractured. Yeah. Literally, the fallout from it is devastating, and it affects everybody. And I will say to the people who are doing this dodgy counselling, well, who benefits from it? If you've got an accuser who genuinely believes that these things have happened to them and they haven't, well, how are they benefiting from it? Because their whole support systems, their family networks are destroyed immediately, and they're left isolated, lonely, depressed, and quite a number of them take their own lives. And it's truly terrifying. Yeah. What can happen to them? I could go into graphic detail on this. You don't need it.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
nobody benefits from a false accusation.
I think the problem as well is that because when crimes are being committed or being committed, there are people who are suffering under that. And I think that when people go around and take and those things need to be taken very seriously, which and you made a great point of it at the beginning, And the reason for me personally, I find that it's very important to take to take any investigation very seriously, is because when you have people making up false allegations, and we are just supposed to believe anyone who comes up with an allegation, it diminishes and dilutes the actual real pain of someone who really went through that crime, right? So it is actually, in essence, extremely disrespectful to me when we are not investigating and engaging in proper in a way that to make sure that actually is what being said, does this add up? And like you said, look at different sources, which is actually, that's what science do, right? When they try and prove something, they do also look at how can you, one of the things is when someone comes up with a new theory in science, all of their peers go in and look at, can we misprove this? That how do we, can we look at, where are the weaknesses around it and stuff? And it's not because it's not a sign of disrespect. It's how you actually make sure the scientific world stays respected. And I think it's like, if you don't go in and if you just believe someone just because you should believe them, that's not the job of the legal system. I feel like we need, because it is really like diluting people who have really gone through proper crimes, and it's not proper is not the right word, but have gone through crimes, and then other people who are just using it as a revenge, and then they haven't gone through anything, and they just think it's fun to just throw an accusation, ruin someone else's life, and like you said, consequences can be suicide, and it's very serious, and it's something to.
Genuine victims do not benefit from false allegations.
They do
not. Doesn't help them in any way. It uses the resources up. It undermines their credibility because people reading the paper, there's been a couple of false allegations, so they're not believed. They don't want to report anyway, partially because they're scared that they won't be believed. Yeah. So false allegations do not in any way support real victims of abuse.
No, it doesn't, and that's why people don't come. And that's the thing, like people don't come forward because they feel like they're not going to be believed. They feel they're going to be blamed, and it's like that's why we have to be very, very careful. Yeah, like you said, there has to be a sense. We have to be able to listen to people. They have to feel heard, because when there is a true victim, they need to be heard and not being mistrusted, because that's going to make it worse. But it's a very complex, and I mean, it's very sensitive area.
And let's be honest. No system is foolproof. Why should a criminal justice system be foolproof? Mistakes happen anyway, deliberately or otherwise. And we were in court a couple of weeks ago. The jury was out. And the people I'm sat with, their fate is in the lives of these random people who don't really know them. They've heard the evidence. They came to what I thought was a decision, but the right decision. That could easily go wrong.
I don't even understand the whole concept of jury. I mean, that's something I'm going to speak with Louise on Tuesday. But it's like, I don't understand how I never want to be picked for jury duty, because I'm like, what do I know? How am I going to be responsible for someone's who am I? I know nothing.
Yes, but you bring life experience. That's the whole basis of the jury system. You can use your life experience. You can assess the evidence. You can weigh the evidence, and you can come to a logical conclusion. So actually, you could easily do jury service.
But couldn't a judge do that?
Well, a judge could do that, but your life experience is probably better placed than a judge. The judge, trial by judge and jury, the judge is about the law, the jury make the decision. But the whole idea of this system is that every juror brings their life experience and balances that with the evidence. But where it all goes wrong, often, is that people come in with preconceived perceptions, about. It's sort of sex abuse hysteria, isn't it? And how can you tell? You can pick up a newspaper and you get genuine allegations. You get allegations that sound unlikely, but trying to find where the middle ground is on all of that is so difficult. And it is hysterical. If somebody says you make an allegation against somebody, and even if you're acquitted, can you imagine you as a mother at the school gates and somebody has been accused, he's been exonerated, but a part of you might think, well, did he really do anything? Would I let my child go around and play with his child? And the answer is, you wouldn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. Once that thing has been placed on you, it's a stain you can't really get rid of. You can't. Like even people who've been exonerated after 36 years of being in jail, they're innocent, they've come out. That is there. That's it. It is there. That stain is there. So that injustice has happened before they even walked into that jail. It's happened already once they were accused, and it would go splashed out onto the paper. That's why I don't agree. And then it used to be different, I feel. They never used to put stuff in the papers until there was an actual decision being made, because the impact of an innocent person having a false accusation on their back, this is it. Because you're relying on people reading the papers where it goes, oh, bad, he's innocent or she's innocent. Most people don't even go, they're not interested in that, because that doesn't sell papers. So they're not going to put that maybe on the front page, and not everybody's going to read the paper at that point. So it's like the damage is done. The damage is done, and it's a very scary place. Can I ask you, is the legal system equipped for this? Because when I'm thinking about witness statements, and witness statements is obviously based a lot of it on memory, right? Is the legal system equipped for all of this nonsense?
That's a very easy question to answer. No. So the system, the criminal justice in England and Wales, is an adversarial system. So the prosecutor tries to show that the complainant has committed these acts. The defence tries to show they're not. But in the middle ground, somebody can make an accusation and they may genuinely believe it. The traditional adversarial approach would be to undermine them and potentially call them a liar or show them a liar. But there's a middle ground. What if they genuinely believe it, but their memories are wrong? So they may not be lying, as in the case I've just come out of in court, where there's no question whatsoever that the accusers in this case genuinely believe these things have happened. But the court, in this particular case, it did take that into account, but it's so rare, and that involved an expert witness. But generally, there's a middle ground, so it's not the guilty, not guilty. It might be that somebody's making the allegations in rare cases, in exceptional cases, and they may generally believe them, but they're not true. And the courts, the legal system is not geared up for that. Law students, judges, there's very little training. If you look at any law undergraduate course in the country, or indeed postgraduate course, you will see very, very little on memory. Very little.
That's very interesting what you said, because sounding convincing because you're convinced is not enough of an evidence or proof, right?
No, and basically, if you believe something's happened to you, and whether it's happened or it hasn't happened, if you believe it, you're going to be tearful, you're going to be emotional. It's upsetting. And how can, if you and I were now to sit and look at two people, one who's making genuine allegations and giving very kind of clear emotional testimony, another one who's making false allegations but genuinely believed, how could you and I discern between truth and fiction? It's very hard. We might get it right, we might not.
Well, see, that's really interesting, because it has sort of brought that whole trend of the thing of like, oh, but it's my truth, it's how I experienced it, it's my truth, respected. It has brought it to a very different lens, right? I mean, it's interesting because we've become so accustomed to go, oh, it's their truth, you have to respect, it's their blah, 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 it's their experience. But in effect, that's not enough anymore. That's not going to cut it. And it never did cut it before. But now we've become so soft as a society that we can't offend people. And I feel sometimes, even now, I'm like, it's a very dangerous road to go down, because just because something feels real or true to you does not make it real. And it's exactly, it's like the case of religion. A lot of it is, a lot of them are talking about the same thing. But different terms, one person says, well, actually, it's the cow's not allowed to eat. The other one, it says, no, it's the pork, pig's not allowed to eat. And I don't think there's a few little variations. It feels just like it's all a little bit of the same thing, but it's just, at the end of the day, it's all coming from the same place. I feel it's all about, a higher power and all of that stuff. And I'm making a very bad job talking about it right now, but people are still fighting over who's right and who's wrong. And it's like, what's the point? That's not the point of having a belief or religion and stuff like that. It's not to fight about it, of who's right. So that seems to also have been lost in translation, and a lot of it, I think at the beginning was all about, storytelling, right? They told each other stories and then eventually they wrote it down. And that's, again, it's like, it's not about accuracy. It's about the meaning behind it.
Storytelling is very important, I think, and completely underestimated. So if you look at, how sexy is it almost to say, well, look, I was abused 40 years ago. I've completely forgotten about it. I've been to see this great counsellor. She's taken me back and now remembered all these things happened to me. That's a far better story than me just saying, I don't believe it. That's recovered memories. It's powerful. It's in culture. It's in Hollywood. And Jason Bourne washing up the beach in The Bourne Identity. And he can't remember things. He gets flashbacks. But that's a traumatic brain injury. But in popular culture, it becomes something else. And most people generally believe that memory doesn't work like a video recorder. And there's been lots of surveys with the general public, with legal professionals, with psychologists, and it shows that our beliefs about memory are all wrong, basically.
Yeah.
They're not correct.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, yeah. And it's like you can see even like two people in the same room experiencing the same thing will talk about it in different ways. Because first of all, perception, right? Perception is huge. And then how you remember it is huge. And actually, I forgot to ask you this. I should have asked you this at the beginning. And then we're going to round up, I promise. I'm taking a lot of your time. I'm so sorry. I should have asked this at the top. But when we're talking about memory, to which senses are we referring to when we talk about those different types of memories? Is it eyesight, smell, taste, hearing, touch, a mix, all of them? Like, what does constitute like a memory here?
Well, your memory is your recollection of what you think has happened. So that's your kind of memory. But what would be asked in counselling, so this is quite a classic one. So, you've got a problem. Let's say you're depressed. Let's complicate it. Say you've also got a relationship problem. And let's say you've got anxiety. So you could do with some help. And then you take it back to childhood. And it's suggested, have you ever thought you may have been abused? No, I've got no recollection. I don't remember ever being abused. But that's pushed eventually until you give an answer. And then you might be said, well, can you try to imagine what it would feel like if you were abused? And then once you let that in, then you might say, what does it taste like? What does it smell like? And you bring in the other senses. And then before you know it, you're told to write down your dreams. You go home, you have a nightmare. Who wouldn't have a nightmare after that? I certainly would. And then you write down that nightmare. You go back to counselling, discuss again. Then it engulfs your whole personality. So it covers everything you just said. It takes over your personality, and then your whole sort of persona is defined by this sort of recovered abuse narrative. And then, obviously, if your life isn't working out, why has this happened to me? What's my life amounted to? And then basically you've got a label, haven't you, which you can attach to it and blame everybody but yourself, if you like, at an extreme level. And all of us make mistakes. All of us are vulnerable. But you've just got to be very, very careful when we tread into these murky waters to see the woods from the trees. And who is this person in front of you anyway? With fancy sounding qualifications, suggesting that your childhood would be the opposite to what you remember. So it becomes everything. It probably starts out with a vague image, a so-called memory, and it's probably just on that level only. But if it takes over your whole personality, that's what it does do. Yeah. It becomes everything.
This is really interesting because it just the people who talk about stimulating memory, that just put it on a whole different light to me. Because even with that thing I just told you earlier about this French comic who got into a car accident, doesn't remember, and there's 3 victims, I think it's 3. And there is this expert on this TV program in France saying, well, you can stimulate memory. You can put him at the place of where it happened. You can maybe put like the clothes they were wearing on that day. It sounds like actually now hearing you talk about those things, it sounds like that's a bit of manipulation. I'm sure the intention is good, but then again, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? So the intention of
Yeah,
that expert is good. It's like, oh, maybe you just needs to help a bit remembering, but actually you're manipulating that person
yeah,
into remembering maybe
yeah.
something that's not really, yeah.
Well, France is very Freudian. They believe largely across the criminal justice system, they believe in repressed memories. They believe in Freud's unproven theories.
Who believes in that, you
And
said?
France does. The population do. The criminal justice system do. Lawyers do. Judges do. It's a different system over there. You have a judge who decides everything, and he's given the evidence in inverted commas, and that judge makes all the decisions. So it's a completely different legal system, one that perplexes me, to be honest. But it is very Freudian, France. There's more belief. There have been academic papers on this recently. There's more belief in the idea that you can repress trauma. But interestingly, some studies have shown that there's arguably growing belief across Western Europe in this concept of repression, particularly in Holland at the moment, where there's increasing belief in satanic ritual abuse. And there's been lots of studies on this. And nobody's not one demonstrable case in the Western world. You do have people who are abusers, who use religious symbols and do wear cloaks and gowns and use altars. But the idea of organized, systematic cults operating over the globe is just simply not evidenced.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be very careful with our witch hunt, right? I mean, you have bad, like you said, you have bad elements, right? Bad actors.
Yeah, absolutely,
every place,
absolutely.
right? Not all teachers are abusers, but if you're gonna be a pedophile, you're gonna be like a teacher
Yeah.
for small school. Like, where else are you gonna go, right? Like, that's like the perfect ground, but it doesn't mean that they all are the same, And it's just it's this there's that thing of deduction that's sometimes a bit of a problem.
I mean, what we used to do, didn't we? We go back to Salem. We used to crush people between stones and destroy them. And now we don't do that. What we do now, we crush them emotionally. You make a false allegation. It's impossible to prove a negative. So if Michelle says, well, 43 years ago you did this to me and it didn't happen, how can you prove that anyway?
Yeah.
And then if we have cases where families are split on it, a family member makes an allegation and some family members say, well, I don't know why this person would make that allegation wasn't true, and other family members are completely appalled by it and don't believe it. Siblings, the siblings are a tough place to be. If you've got an accusing sibling and you remember the childhood completely differently, you want to support your sibling, particularly if you're a twin, and you also know these things haven't happened, you want to support the accused, where do you go? And it's a lonely existence for that person. And it's horrible, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, that's a horrible situation because you have that, that loyalty to family and the love, right? You want to support them till the end, but then there's a cutoff point. So what would you say is the future of memory science? What is the future? Like, where are we going with this?
The future of it is we're learning more and more. We're learning more about how memory functions. In my opinion, you hinted at early on, we need to do more with people who are experts about how the brain functions. It needs to be more interdisciplinary study across different disciplines, not just psychology. Historians, for example, historians of crime, are woefully, blissfully ignorant about this whole memory stuff and the memory wars. But it needs to branch out to different disciplines. We need to try to agree on some things across disciplines about how memory works, how the brain functions, and how things are possible, but how some things are unlikely. And there needs to be someone, we particularly need in the legal system, there has been guidance in the past, but there needs a fresh framework on this. There needs to be more training for judges, for members of the public, for lawyers, from all sorts of backgrounds about the way memory works. It's very interesting because in civil law, and the precedents on this, memory is looked at almost with disdain. If you're claiming, if you and I are involved in, say, Angie, a civil writ involving damages, and say it goes back 25 years, well, the approach the civil courts will generally take is that, well, your memory can't be trusted, but neither can my memory. We've both got things to gain from winning or losing this case. In criminal law, it's almost like memory is not something we can dare discuss. The Court of Appeal are hostile to it.
Is that in England and Wales, or just for...
England and Wales? Yes, yes. Scotland's got a different legal system, and probably even more stuck in this not wanting to talk about memory than England and Wales. However, the case I've been involved in recently was in Scotland, and we had a memory expert in that court, and the submissions of the defence team were all about recovered memories. The judge accepted the evidence of a memory expert, and the case revolved around that. But that's a very unique case, and whether I'll see a case like that again, I'm not so certain. But yeah, we all need to be better educated about memory. We'll never be able to say for certain, in some cases, what happened, particularly where things go back 30, 40 years. And by the very nature of these allegations just involve two people normally. But if we're better educated on how memory works, on how the brain works, on this whole thing about trauma, we can probably make better informed decisions.
Yeah. And I think we need to evolve this into like not accusing people on hearsay, right? So, because that's basically sounds like almost like what it boils down to. Can I end this on a little positive note in how terrible our memory can be, but how actually it can actually really benefit us in some cases, right? So I have found that when, let's say, if you do actually have some sort of like if you have a strained relationship, let's say with family, and something's, it's been going on and on for years and years and years, the minute you actually heal it, that you sort of get past it or heal it, it's almost like the healing of it replaces the memory. You can't really remember what it was that you were even mad about. The details don't matter. And it's almost like it just gets replaced by this happiness and this good place that you're in with that person. And I find it like that's where it really, that quality of memory not being so rigid is really advantageous, because otherwise you would never get past things. You just remember everything bad or whatever, whether they were real or not. But you just, at some point, you just have to let the past die into the past, right? And it sort of almost happens automatically once you've gone into a good place with someone,
It depends on the circumstances. Obviously, there's some things where there probably won't be any healing, but in general,
no. But when it does heal,
I agree with you. You get one life, contrary to what some people believe. That's my belief. There's one life, and make the most of it.
You definitely have this one. That's for sure. You have this life. You got to work with it, right? So,
yes.
I want to ask you the two finishing thoughts that I ask all of my guests, Kevin. Okay. And the first one is, what do you wish you'd realized at 18, but really understood on a cellular level?
Yeah. Well, given where I am now and what's happened to me, it would have been quite helpful if I'd have known all about recovered memories, false memories, and when my sister made these, wild allegations, it would have been good if I'd have been better informed.
Yeah,
I wasn't. Luckily, one of my brothers was, but that would have been very helpful, aged 18. Yes, so better, more aware of the area I work in.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the second one, Kevin, is what do you not put up with anymore?
I don't like intolerance, and I don't like people who are evidence based, and I don't like moral panics.
What's moral panics?
A moral panic is whereby you have a perceived problem and then society panics about it and you bring in things. So if you go back to, I'm going to take you right back now, but in the 1960s, the term mugging was invented and there's a big panic about in criminology in the tabloid press about muggers. There was in the end of the 19th century, there's an MP called Hugh Pilkington who was strangled outside the House of Commons. And the Times in particular ran a series of articles on it, and they called these people, who we would call muggers or robbers, garrotters. And because of those relatively small incidents, but enough to be significant, a moral panic started in the country about safety on the streets. So you get those periodically, you get them. We had it in a good example with McCarthyism in the 1960s, where everybody felt in America was a communist or working for the Russians. We had the Red Scare in 1923, which was similar to that. So they're the kind of things that I'm more curious about them than anything else, but I'm always very guarded when these sweeping generalizations are made. I want to just step back and look at the evidence.
I agree with you so much. It's like I have this expression in my head, and it doesn't come from me. It's someone else who said it, that you just gotta, I really believe this, is that you just have to learn to hold the pose. It's like take a beat, don't get swept up. And it's with anything that's happened in the last few years, especially because social media takes up things like, and it amplifies it. Hold the pose, sit back, don't react straight away just because you heard something in the news, or just because things aren't always what they seem, and just hold the pose, and you're the one who's going to come out strong at the end of it. 100%.
Correct.
Yeah. And so before you tell us where we can find and work with you, Kevin, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us? Maybe something I didn't get to ask you. I may have cut you off when you tried to. Is there anything that you'd like to say before we finish?
No, we've covered a lot, I think, haven't we, Angie? BFMS is bfms.org.uk. That's a website where you can read all about memory, false memories, and some of the kind of work we do. We have a personal website, justiceforcarol.com, where you can read more about my own case if you don't have a life and you're bored. So other than those two, we did a book also called Justice for Carol, which is published in, when was it? 2014, I think.
Is it Carol Is it CAROL?
CAROOL, yes. That's on Amazon Books. You can find that. But no, I think you've comprehensively covered the ground, Angie.
Well, I want to say thank you so much, Kevin, for your time and just all of the incredible wisdom and nuggets that you shared with us today. I really, really appreciate it. I know you're a very, very busy man and you're doing important work. So I just want to say thank you so much. And
really welcome.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Take it easy. Have a good weekend.
You too.
Thank you, Angie.
And that's our episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to rate, review, share it, subscribe, follow it on Spotify or whichever platform you listen from. However you show love is how you can support this show. Drop me your questions or suggestions for future episodes via the website at angie-s.com, or come and find me on Instagram at Tool for Dish It Podcast. Until next time.
Using health inappropriately.